Why did he join a group that was known for mocking Christianity and Christ? Why did he join it? It's apparent from Mr. Green in today's paper that he joined it, that they reveled in sacrilege. and values matter. And when is it ever appropriate to tie up a woman and ask her to kneel before a false god that you called Aqua Buddha?
Okay, that's time. 15 seconds. Go ahead, Mr. Paul. Dr. Paul.
How do you respond to a guy who's going to quote somebody anonymously from 30 years ago that's untrue? You just out and out lie because you have nothing to stand on.
Well, flying mud during the Kentucky Senate debate. It led to Republican Rand Paul walking off the stage without shaking his opponent's hand. Democrat Jack Conway attacking Paul on some of his past religious rituals, or at least that's how Conway would describe it, in a state where religion is no laughing matter. So with Conway now gaining in the polls, the question is, did the so-called smear tactics work? Richard Socarides is a Democratic strategist and former special assistant to President Bill Clinton. So Rand Paul, you heard his reaction, and he called this gutter politics, smear tactics. Even Democrat Claire McCaskill has come out and said, this is very close to the line. I think it's inappropriate. And yet, nonetheless, the only pollster to poll in Kentucky that we have since that debate, Scott Rasmussen, shows the race has tightened from what was not long ago an 11-point lead by Rand Paul to a 5-point lead by Rand Paul. So, Richard, is it working?
Well, look, I think Rand Paul's a nut. And I think, you know, he's supports BP. He's against the federal civil rights laws. I think he's really part of kind of a lunatic fringe in American politics.
He's a libertarian.
Well, I think he's kind of a nut. And I think that Jack Conway wanted to say with this ad and with his debate performance, this guy is part of an extreme wing in the Republican Party.
What extreme wing is it that worships the Aqua Buddha?
Well,
it was
listen,
some college prank. Does anyone seriously believe Rand Paul?
Let me just say, I think that this is going to work for Jack Conway. I think, you know, he's held statewide office in that state before. People like him.
General.
I think it's going to work for him, and I think we'll look back on this. So the other really interesting thing about this is Rand Paul has not said it's not true. He said, stop attacking my character.
Well, it sounds
so this
like,
is a very interesting development.
It sounds like at best this was a prank. I mean, are you denying that at best this was a prank? Because even the woman, here's what allegedly happened. He was part of some crazy group when he was in college, Baylor University, and they were irreverent and they made fun of the Baptist leaders of that university. And they did crazy things like pretending to worship false gods because that would irritate the people who led the university. These are according to the reports, right? Rand Paul has not confirmed this. And this woman, they took her out, blindfolded her.
So far, it sounds pretty good.
Right? Tied her up.
Oh, yeah, tied her up a little bit.
Told her to worship this Aqua Buddha.
It was really just a prank.
No, but the woman, the way Jack Conway spun that in that debate, I mean, I was like, what did he kidnapped a woman, tied her up, and
well, listen, politics is tough. We got 2 weeks to go.
And said, that's ridiculous. He's over the top. It was a prank. That's what she said.
Listen.
After the fact, she ended her friendship. She wasn't pleased with it, but she realized it was a prank.
You know, what can you say? I mean, we've got 2 weeks to go. This is a serious business. I think that Jack Conway is proving that he can be as tough as the Republicans can be. I mean, this is the kind of stuff the Republicans do to Democrats all the time. The Democrats don't fight back. I'm glad he's fighting back. Now, I thought one of the other really interesting things, you know, you heard on some of the morning shows this morning, all the Democrats, all the liberals are saying, Jack Conway went too far. He's gone too far. This is too extreme. We don't want to go this far. I mean, here's a guy who's standing up. I mean, the only way he can win this, only way he can pull it out, and this may turn out to be, you know, the deciding seat, the 51st seat somewhere. The only way he can pull this out is if he can convince people that this guy's an extremist. And he's behind. He's got to do something to shake up the race. So it's a very risky strategy. But for him in this race,
why go after his religion? You're saying he reveled in sacrilege, talking about his opinions about the Bible, basically causing people to doubt whether he's a real Christian, a real Presbyterian. Because I want to put this on the board, Richard. You're always a straight shooter. Look at what President Obama, then candidate Obama, said back in 2008 about how his party was going to handle this thing, or was going to handle politics. What you won't hear from this party is the kind of politics that uses religion as a wedge, that sees our opponents not as competitors to challenge, but as enemies to demonize. Now, I ask you, did Jack Conway live up to that promise?
Well, I'm not sure anybody's lived up to that promise with 2 weeks to go before an election. I mean, it's just not realistic.
So it's okay, just as when you get to 2 weeks before, forget this.
But I think that, you know, when the stakes get high, people understand this. When the stakes get high and we get down to the home stretch, you know, these rules go out the window. I mean, I think that's a very good aspirational kind of thing.
But where is the debate on the issues? Because, okay, you started off by saying you think he's a nut and he's got all these positions. I feel like that would have been okay to debate, right? For Conway to say, you want to do this, you want to do that, and they could have gotten into it on the issues.
Right.
But why suggest, you know, that some prank, you are a reasonable person, Richard. You're telling me you think that this, let's assume it's true, that this prank that Rand Paul and some other guy did 30 years ago.
Well, it's not just the prank, too, right? It's some of the other stuff that he said.
Okay, but 30 years ago.
Well, it's not all 30 years ago. It's some of it.
Well, that's what he's focused on, this prank that took place in college.
The ad is focused on stuff he did in college.
All right,
that's
but
correct.
You're telling me that that should change the minds of Kentucky voters?
You know, I think that it is in fact a close call for Jack Conway. But I think that, especially because these issues are so important in this state, you know, these issues of, of faith and religion.
You just want to
No,
sway
I'm
the
not
vote.
saying it doesn't matter. I think it's a very close call, but I think the stakes are very high. That this guy is an extreme case, and that, you know, when the stakes are high, sometimes you have to use extreme measures. I mean, this guy, Jack Conway, has got to do something to shake up this race. Otherwise, he's going to lose this race, and we're going to have Rand Paul in the U.S. Senate for 6 years.
If Christine O'Donnell did something like this in her race as the Republican, you'd be slamming her, saying it's not appropriate.
No, I don't think so.
Richard.
I really don't think so, because I think I try to be fair to both sides.
Yeah, you do.
Same standard.
You too. Thank you, Richard Socarides. Always a pleasure, sir.
Good to see you.